Fit this dress.
Life is funny until it's not. A comic story of love, loss, and lunacy. Where's the lunacy part?
Right now, today. That's exactly right. You know, I think the lunacy has been there 24/7 always. But the loss and the laughter comes and goes. You know, but it is. It's very much just life.
And people say weird stuff to you when they find out that you've lost your husband, and when you're a widow, they'll go like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear you lost your husband." Which I think sounds very irresponsible.
You've shared your struggles of love, loss previously, but we learned a lot of new things. I'll talk specifically about family secrets in that chapter where you're sharing abuse that you didn't think you suffered.
For me, I remember, when you open the wound, this sounds like a gross thing, but when you open a wound to disinfect it, to clean the wound, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's painful. There's things you find out about yourself that I go, oh, that's why I react like I do. That's why I don't trust people very well. That's why it took me so long to trust a loving God, is because my view of fatherhood was so distorted, and that's why I think counseling is so imperative.
What was the process like for you writing this book and being so raw and real?
It was hard. Now, I've worked on this for a while. I think there are times when you tell all, there needs to be an appropriateness to it, and that is, a lot of those people have passed now. This book would grieve my mother. She would see in it going, oh, I should have got out of that marriage sooner. I know my mother, because I'm so much like her. I should have done this, I should have done that, I had a wonderful counselor tell me one time, stop shooting on yourself. And I just cracked up at that, It's true. You can't go back, you can't regret, you can't because that's a fueling ground for the devil, But it was not time to write that while she was living. I didn't write it, until my father had passed, because it's just not time,
One of the things you say, and I wrote this down so I got it right, is tragedy plus time equals comedy. Comedy plus time equals relief.
Right.
What do you mean?
Comedy is a great tool. It also could be very divisive. It can also be a great deflection. I have used comedy sometimes to deflect pain. I used to tell a story about little old ladies at church, and one of them said I wasn't very pretty, and I turned around and said, no, but I'm real SMART. And I remember telling that in a way, just hoping those little old ladies see that on TV sometimes.
Yeah.
As a little skinny, knobby-headed kid with white hair, I skipped over to my mother real quick and said, those two ladies said I'm not very pretty. Do you think I'm pretty, Mama?
When you add time to your comedy, it becomes a great, beautiful release and a relief, rather than used in a tough way. Now, I still dance on the edge, as Mama says. I loved my 32 years. I have argued with God. How come I can't go get a Netflix special? Well, I'm going to get HBO. I want to be Ellen and have my own show. And I lament constantly. And at the same time, boy, God did me a favor.
How are you feeling having done this for more than 30 years?
I'm ready to do a new thing. I get weary of the buzz, but you also caught me 1 week when we shut the buzz down. Yes. Call me in September. I'll be telling my manager, you need to get me a show. I need to get out there. I am just bored stiff. And that happens all the time, too. And I crank up the buzz and go again,
Sort of end the way you end the book, if I can. You talk about musical caskets.
It is the truth. Efrem, you know my
really?
Yes, and you know my life. You've been out there in my house. The funniest thing is, when we went to bury Papa, there was no room for him because Jesus needs to come. We just run out of room in the cemeteries, and so I decided, because I had the means, I had buried my husband on the farm, so I dug them all up. My sisters, my parents, yes, my grip, and 4 bodies on a flatbed went through Ashland City, Tennessee. But it was so bizarre, and it was funny. Only God.
Yeah.
You could sit and laugh at 10 times. Now, believe me, I didn't laugh the day one of them died. But a few days after, you start remembering silly things and funny things, you know.
Well, in light of the life that you've lived,
Yeah.
if you could go back, we see a picture of you, little Chonda,
Yes.
in here. If you could go back and give that little Chonda some advice, what would you tell that little girl?
First, I would throw my arms around her and going, "You're going to survive some stuff, girl. You know, you're going to go through some grief, but you're going to have great love in your life. You are going to cry, but you're going to hear some laughs. You know, that will just be crazy." I think the first thing I would tell her is latch on to God quick, because He is going to walk you through some places you will never believe.
And I looked in the mirror, and there it was. I am the miracle. I'm surprised I'm still here.